How do we build fraud rules around both domestic and international? Conscious here that we don't cause too much of customer pain again.
I made payments recently 3 days ago from Belgium to Italy. In 2 seconds, the money was there.
And I know back in the days, the cost of a cross-border payment can be $20 to $30, which is not what a retail customer would want to pay, right?
The game will be always to try to be ahead of that guys in terms of innovation, technology, and all that. Always maintain this gap.
I think the most important part is you send the money and it comes back saying the beneficiary name was incorrect, right? And two things happen. One is the disappointment of money not going through, but more importantly, there is a lot of exchange rate loss here.
We're here today to talk about instant payments and the future of cross-border payments. We've got Deepak, our head of retail at Emirates NBD, and we've got Alain Raes from iPiD here to talk about something we all really care about, right? Fast, seamless, secure payments, especially across borders. I think it's one of the topics that everyone can understand because it's something that we live and breathe every day as consumers. So let's give it a go. Let's be real. Waiting for 3 days for a transfer feels pretty ancient, right? So where are we heading with instant payments? What's the customer experience today? And I'll start with Deepak. What are we serving to our customers at ENBD?
Thank you, Sean, for having us. I think we are very clearly in a Gen Z, millennial, and alpha era now, right? I think nobody wants to wait, and I think most of the food delivery apps have probably spoiled the market as well, right? You know exactly where your order is, where the rider is, has he picked up your order. So I think the customers are expecting the same for payments. And I think from our perspective, I think we're seeing that come a long way, I think, and I'm sure we'll talk through the partnerships at some point in time, but there's a lot of change in the last, I would say 18 to 24 months in the realm of instant payments, right? Because people it's not about just I've sent the money, has it reached, and has it reached now? I think it's become critical. I think at ENBD, we're trying to probably put a framework around it. And a colleague of mine gave a very nice acronym to it. It's called TEST. It has to be transparent, efficient, scalable, and traceable, right? And the whole idea is this is exactly following what you would see on a Uber or a Deliveroo app, right? Where you're actually seeing the stages of the payment. And the whole idea is, can we use the existing infrastructure and partnerships to deliver that truly instantaneously, and more importantly at a very cost optimum level? Because today, and I know back in the days, there used to be times, and even I'm sure there are some corridors today where the cost of a cross-border payment can be in the high $20 to $30, which is not what a retail customer would want to pay, right? You're trying to send out $200, $300. You don't want to pay $20, $30 for that transfer. So I think it's moving in the right direction. And I think we're very excited about the whole era of instant payments.
Fantastic. Thank you, Deepak. Over to you, Alain. I mean, you've been around payments for God knows.
Too many years,
I don't want to say it out loud, right? But instant payments in Australia, right? And now with iPiD, you're looking at a different angle, but you're at the right time, right place when it comes to cross-border instant payments. Can you tell us a little bit about iPiD and what you guys are solving for?
I think in order to foresee what's going to happen in the future, you need to also what happened in the past, right? And it's fair to say, to your point, that 30 years ago, any cross-border payments was taking anywhere between 4 days to 7 days before reaching the final recipient, right? And those days are gone, right? I mean, typically today, when it comes to moving the money through the rails, you have different rails and all that, it's actually a lot faster than it used to be. Actually, domestically, most countries today have already real-time payment systems and rails. Regionally, you're moving to Europe, you have the SEPA region, the new regulations. I made payments recently 3 days ago from Belgium to Italy. In 2 seconds, the money was there, irrevocable. So all those rails are there. When it comes to cross-border in between regions, like here to Asia and all that, it's not real time yet, right? But it's getting to near real time, right? Sometimes it's a few hours. Not only because big companies like Swift have evolved and create systems that helps you to monitor the GPI, for instance, and all that, but also because you have no new schemes of payments. You have new participants in the industry, like Noom, that I know you're working with and all that actually makes a difference and helps you actually to make the payments movement a lot faster. What is, I believe, much more critical for the future is precisely what you were talking about, Deepak, is about the customer experience. I think people are much more concerned and worried about not knowing exactly what is happening with their money than about the speed, right? If you talk to a corporate treasurer that sends a payment of 5 million to somewhere in China, he's going to tell you, I don't care about the one day. What I care about, I want to be told where my money is. I want to be told when the money is getting credited on the final recipients, all that. I want to be told about the price. I want to be told about the exchange rates and all that. Speed, of course, it cannot be 7 days anymore, but certainty, visibility, transparency, monitoring, all of that is there. And that's precisely what iPiD is doing, right? I mean, what we do is about bringing another level of certainty by being able, before sending the payments, being able to know that whoever you're paying to, whichever account you're paying to, is actually the right account, it does exist, can receive the fund, and more importantly, it is owned by the person or the company you want to pay to, right? And that gives certainly another level of comfort, whether you are, again, a corporate treasurer or you are an individual, you want to pay. Look here, all the foreign workers that you have here remitting money back home, in Pakistan, India, wherever the family is. It's for them. It's critical to be sure it's getting there, right? So that's what we're helping to do. We're not actually the only reason, the only way to improve in the customer experience, but I think that's what we like with working with you, is that you have the rails and all that. You're partnering with companies like ours to precisely adding more bricks on the rails so that the customer experience ultimately is much better.
Yeah, and I love the examples you gave, Deepak, of the Careem experience or the Uber experience, be able to track that payment. Maybe the TEST acronym will be borrowed from iPiD. iPiD is also another acronym. We do love our acronyms. But on those partnerships, right? So maybe could you speak a little bit about, Deepak, some of the partnerships that we've invested in, how are we deploying them, how will that impact our customers?
Sure. I think, like we've just spoken about, right? I think it's about how we are progressing from a customer's perspective, right? I think there's a certain customer expectation, and if I look back even to this market, if I look back about 5 or 6 years ago, I think a lot of banks, and we started it, and we saw a lot of banks follow suit. One of the largest corridors was India, right? So we took corridor by corridor to see where could we move the money quicker, faster. It could be bilateral relationships, it could be through partnerships, and we were able to deliver money reliably and instantly to some of those corridors, right? India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. As we looked at expanding, then we needed to look at partnerships, because obviously SWIFT was going through its revamp, and we needed partners who could deliver to the next set of customer corridors. And I think we need to be conscious here that UAE is an expat market, right? The volume, and it's probably the second largest outward corridor in the world after the US, right? And almost every individual here has a need at least once a month to send money probably back home. I mean, that's the basic need, right? So you need to then say that, have I covered at least 80% of my customers, to give that transparent, efficient, scalable kind of a solution. So there are two parts to it, right? So first was a partnership with Neo, where we looked at expanding our instant corridor. And not just instant, it is also a far more cost efficient corridor than the traditional rails, right? So we looked at them to expand into the Far East, into UK. So there were many markets that they could give us instant delivery. The second more relevant point we just spoke about is, I've sent the money, did it reach on the other side? So we needed the validation, right? Because I think the most important part is you send the money and it comes back saying the beneficiary name was incorrect, right? And two things happen. One is the disappointment of money not going through, but more importantly, there is a lot of exchange rate loss here, right? Because if the FX rate is moved in those few days, the customer is going to be out of pocket again. So that's where our partnership with iPiD, I think I'm really excited, because I think the first few corridors we've tested, I think it gives that confidence to the customer that the beneficiary name is correct. And this will add an additional layer of comfort to the customer that what they've sent is right. It'll reach the recipient and hopefully on time. So I think partnerships are the way, because like we rightly discussed, I think we are a large distribution setup, right? Because we probably transfer about 35% of the remittances in this market. But then can we work with partners who can make us do that more efficiently, more transparently, and more with the full trust for the customer. I think that's where the entire iPiD partnership comes in, Sean.
Absolutely, and we're very excited about it. And how do you see sort of these partnerships? Right, you've partnered with a few different players. How do you come into these partnerships?
Well, I mean, let's put this way, right? I mean, iPiD is a young company, right? We've been founded. We founded the company in Singapore about 4 years ago. And like any other young fintech, you need to start expanding. And of course, I mean, approaching, very visible firms like yours and others was highly critical for us, because it would eventually give us actually the credibility that you need to have when you're building your own firm, right? And that's what we were trying to do. The way we approach this, I would say, is very traditional, right? I mean, it just happened that with my history on that at Swift and all that, I knew many people. You start actually talking to them. And there's one thing that we were sure about, is that what we were doing, the problem we were trying to resolve actually were known, and nobody could do it, right? So I think we had the right idea, but then from there, from having a right idea to building a company, a platform, and eventually the first client, is quite a journey. And that's why we're so pleased to have we have NBD now with this partnership with you, because of course, I mean, it gives us business, right? It gives us also the ability to providing you the service that you need to have, and therefore to further enhancing your customer experience. So it's really a partnership. And yes, to be fair and completely transparent, yes, it tremendously helps us, because it gives the visibility that we need to have to conquering more markets in the future, right? So that's why we're also so keen to working with companies like yours, even in the spirit of co-creation. We're looking at ENBD to say, okay, what else can we do, right? In the same kind of very specific niche market we're talking about, but what else do you need, or what other corridor do you need to be sure that you are capable, able to providing the right resource, the right service to your clients?
Absolutely. And so, we're getting to that sort of Uber experience for our retail customers. However, there are challenges, right, on the horizon, Deepak. We see a lot of fragmentation, right, in terms of all these new payment rails, all of these different payment solutions. We also need to navigate this context, right? So how do you approach that? What's the fix?
So for us, I think 2 or 3 areas, Sean. I think firstly, we need to have a problem to solve, right? Because if there's no problem, then you don't want to fix something that's working well, right? So firstly, we identify what are those customer pain points or process pain points that we can look at. So and a classic example, like Alain rightly mentioned, was you picked up a problem that's causing payment failures globally, and you've solved for it. So firstly, and I don't think an individual bank could have done this, because it's impossible. Then I had to start doing bilaterals with pretty much every bank in the world, right? So we look out for platforms who can then come and help solve. And I think fintech partnerships are, unlike probably 5-7 years back where people were saying fintechs are going to eat banks, etc. I think it's you can see it in this event. I think it's clearly a way to go is the partnership, because we have some great fintechs like iPiD coming and solving a problem, and us having the ability to scale it at a level which helps them test, prove that it can work, and take it to the customer. So our method is very clear, right? I think where there are problems we can solve internally, we would, but where we can't, we look out, and we have a very structured fintech engagement in the organization to go out, throw the problems at the team, look out for partners, pilot, and then scale. So, and I think iPiD is a great example of that.
Yes, no, absolutely. It sounds so easy when you say it.
It's not.
It's not easy.
And I think you should. I think the whole thing is you need to keep testing and learning, right? Not everything is going to work always, but when it does click, and I say this to every partner of ours, right? Is people need to be patient, because we're a large bank and it takes time to get there. But I think once you get there, the scale you can get on day one is probably there to see. So I think that's probably the trade-off when a lot of partners come down to us, right?
No, absolutely, and makes it worth it for both parties. So we've talked about speed, transparency, this new customer experience, but obviously there's a lot of concern when we think about moving money and moving money instantly, about fraud, right? And so validation of pay obviously helps with that. But maybe a few thoughts, Alain, on what's the size of this problem, how you addressing it, and what are you seeing in the market right now?
Huge. I mean, I was in Canada last week in Toronto, and had a certain number of keynote speakers from Visa and others that talked about that. And they didn't only talk about the money that's being lost, but also the kind of size of fraud that they've been able to prevent because they start implementing new systems and all that. You're talking about hundreds of billions in a year worldwide, right? It's a huge problem, right? And to your point is that the fact that now you're moving the money faster, a lot faster, domestically or regionally, like I mentioned before, is just connected very closely to the growth of fraud that you see, because the bad guys are smart as well, and then they're trying to find ways in which that you, through impersonation, fraud and all that, steal the money, and as soon as money is gone, right? It's not like before, where eventually, because the money movement was taking 5 days, there's always a way in which you can stop it, right? Once identified. Here, it's gone. And I remember the days back in the early 2000s that UK implemented one of the first retail real-time payment systems, right? Fast payments. Actually, in the press, it was being said already. What's going to happen when, grandma will make a transfer and suddenly she realized she did the wrong thing and the money is gone, right? And now you see this appearing everywhere. That's why now regulators are stepping up, right? In the UK, you have COP, confirmation of payee. Europe starts with VOP, verification of payee. Australia has moved to another COP, confirmation of payee. We see that many countries are now moving the same way, right? Is establishing rules whereby at least you have a verification or pre-verification of the existence of the account and the ownership of the account. Are we saying that this is a silver bullet against all fraud? No, not at all, right? It's just actually one of the bricks you can have in building a wall against the bad guys, right? There's one or two bricks that could be about verification of payee. There's many other bricks about education of people as well, because people tend also to do whatever thing they're impatient, speed, and all that. They do the stuff and suddenly up. So there's many bricks that you need to build. And at the end, the game is always the same thing, right? The game, as technology keeps evolving, AI is coming. What's going to happen with AI, right? I mean, that's going to be another thing. So the game will be always to try to be ahead of bad guys in terms of innovation, technology, all that. Always maintain this gap, because the bad guys will keep investing as well and try to penetrate any system that you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. And we invest massively, right, at NBD in terms of customer education and all of these different bricks, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Deepak?
Sure. So I think I like the point you said, right, Alan? See, fraud is a given. It's never ever going to be zero. I think for us it's two things, right? One is, can we keep educating the customer to be wary of it? Because some of the frauds don't hit you from a banking perspective at all, right? Somebody sends you an offer saying, click here to claim a gift of $100. It's nothing to do with banking. But at the back, they're collecting a banking credential, right? Which ends up being misused. I think from our perspective, if I look at it, one is, how do we firstly learn from all the frauds that have happened? So you need to ensure that what happened should not re-happen. So that's the first line of defense. Second is there a continuous way of looking at these transactions? I mean, outside of, obviously, screening is more to do from a compliance perspective, but how do we build a fraud monitoring tool? And obviously there's a lot of AI, and traditionally these have been there in other payment forms, right? Cards has always had a fraud management system that sat on top, looked at transaction patterns, and we see that coming now. I think, and I think Alain pointed out to real-time payments in the UK. Now they have a fraud overlay platform which they've commonly built as banks there, because that's a big challenge in the market, right? Where they're trying to see how they prevent account fraud. So I think we are also investing. I think we have analytics that's trying to build us models. We're looking at various platforms as well, which can come and sit on top of our money transfer. And I think the problem is on two fronts, right? One is domestic payments is big, and it's not that domestic payment is zero fraud, because a lot of the money gets moved here and then moved out. The second piece of it is in cross-border. If it, like Alan said, if the money is gone and if it's instant, there's no way of getting it back, right? So how do we build fraud rules around both domestic and international, which don't cost, and we have to be conscious here that we don't cost too much of customer pain again. By overdoing the fraud control, you should not again go back to 2-day, 3-day money delivery, right? You want to pick up a sample and ensure that the sample is reasonably false positive is good, and ensure that good transactions go through. So it's still experimental. I think there's a lot to be done on that front, and especially given the scale payments have exploded in the last 4 or 5 years. I think a lot is being also done in terms of fraud models, advanced analytics models, AI, because there are multiple tools that can help you monitor this transfer.
Absolutely. So hopefully a lot of work and
And I
partnership.
think also making sure that it doesn't come at the cost of
Yes.
making the customer
Okay.
experience poor again.
Yes.
Like,
I remember
that's
that.
the right balance you need to find, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, because the easiest thing is to say I'll check every transaction,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then you're back to then there's no longer a straight through, right? Everything goes back to the manual age then, right? So
100%. No, and so seamless, secure, instant. We want to keep that customer experience, and at the same time tackle this this fraud issue, and especially around authorized push payments. So, if you had sort of to look in the next couple of years, what are the big transformations you think we're going to see in payments? Right? Are we going to we see this proliferation of new payment systems? We see these new frauds. We have new partners. What are the big things that people should be looking out for on the payments landscape? Alain?
Well, for me, let's put it this way, right? I think it's going to be a lot more about customer experience precisely. And within customer experience, I really bring together everything about fraud. It's part of the experience, right? You don't want to have your money gone for the wrong reasons and all that. So everything that makes actually the act of payments a lot less, a lot less complex, easy, embedded eventually with other transactions, with an invoice, all of that is automated. So all of that, this experience should be end-to-end, very seamless to everyone. So that's one way to go. I think speed, yes, is going to get perhaps a bit faster on that, but there will still be obstacles, right? Obstacles like local regulations that are always different in between countries to countries. I think financial institutions are collaborating together. Regulators don't. They usually don't collaborate together, so that could be an issue as well. So that's the way I see it in the future. It's for me, it's a lot about customer experience, making these things actually a lot easier for everyone, for corporates, for individuals, supporting the expansion of the business. That's the way I see it.
Okay, that makes sense. Customer experience. What about you, Deepak?
So for me, I think two things like Alan rightly said. I think if I look at an individual customer, it's about, from a customer perspective, it's always faster, cheaper, right? Yeah. So I see a lot happening. Obviously, speed is getting addressed, and I'm sure with what we are doing today, it will get addressed. Cheaper is the other piece, which I'm assuming more partnerships like this coming in and more, hopefully, government engagement at some point in time makes the cross-border piece a lot cheaper than what it is today. Because if you look at the bulk, and while we deal with retail, SMEs, and corporates, if I look at individuals probably contribute to 60-70% of the transactions. May not be the value, but by the number of transactions. So each of those transactions at the cost which it is today, I see it getting more efficient over time, and hopefully that gets made up through the volumes that you're going to send through, right, over a period of time. The third piece, I think, is a lot more to work on, and I think Alan touched on both those points, is the compliance and the fraud aspect. I think a lot more will get interwoven in the way we use customer data, and I think a lot of markets have open finance. I don't know how open finance collaborations are going to come through, but where we have more information than what we have today at the point of transfer to make a better judgment that this is more secure or more compliant than what we do today. So customer experience is very, very, very clear. I think cost efficiencies, obviously that improves customer experience. And more importantly, how do we lay the fraud and compliance aspect to make the trust far better in the transaction?
Okay, makes a lot of sense. I'm going to throw a bit of a grenade in the middle of the podcast, as I like to do. So the other day I was reading that I think one of these big payment networks was launching agentic payments, right? AI payments. Now, I've worked in payments for a while. I know a little bit about AI. I still don't fully understand or wrap my head around agentic payments. Kind of a bit of a shotgun round. What is your view? What does it mean? Kind of a first hit. Anna?
I don't know, right? I mean, I'm blunt enough to say, I don't know, right? What I'm sure, though, right, is that there is a cake, which is the payments industry, the payments business, right? And you have a lot of people on that same cake. On that same cake, a lot of competitors. And what I'm sure over time is that there will be consolidation. There will be consolidation. And eventually, those consolidations will bring perhaps more innovation, cost savings, price, and all that. There will be consolidation. For the sake of me, I mean, I've been into the business for 35 years now. there are some companies that I see that keeps expanding, that keeps raising a lot of money, and that keeps not making any money. And as soon or later,
Yep.
you want to have a big bomb here? Well, they will be, right? I mean, I'm curious. 5 years down the road, how many of those? I wish them all good, right? But I think it's good. There will be consolidation.
Maybe iPiD will go on an acquiring spree, or
Or
maybe
being
will be
or being
acquired.
acquired and all that. But I, when I see, I mean, look at we're talking about the money you're making
Yeah.
as well. When I see in Europe, I mean, when I pay with my bank in Europe to any other country in Europe, whether it is Italy, Spain, Portugal, Eurozone, right? Zilch.
Zero,
I
yeah.
pay zilch. So the banks literally only bears costs.
Yeah.
So sooner or later, there's going to be something happening.
Yep.
It's not sustainable, especially that I do believe that if I have to, I don't know, you pay something, your gardener in Portugal, right? That is a service that the bank is providing you with, right? Why should it be for free? And I'm a client, right? So I'm saying, but is that sustainable? I don't think so.
Okay, thank you, Alain. And Deepak, what about you? So this AI, agentic payments or future of payments?
So I definitely believe there'll be a lot of testing because I think any new technology, and I think if we go through the last 20, 25 years, every 5 years there has been some disruption, right? Of a different kind. Some have sustained, some have probably got modified because at the end of the day, money movement is still a regulated industry. It's not that I could do whatever a Google or an Instagram can do, right? I can't. It's fairly regulated, but I think agentic in the basic form, I think will be a reality with the right checks and balances. Because obviously, if it is what it's automating what you used to call a standing instruction in a different way now, right? It's called agentic so that it can remind you, nudge you, and probably pay on your behalf with the right controls. Yeah. So I think definitely there's a lot that AI will play. I think there's so much money being put in. Hopefully, like Alain rightly said, I'm sure investors will look for some returns, right, for those investments. So I'm sure some of those will go through. And I think we need to be part of the ecosystem to continue testing it in the right way.
All right, so look out for agentic payments from ENBD coming for you soon. I'm joking, of course. Seamless, secure, and instant. It's been an absolute pleasure to have both of you. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Alain.
Thank you very much.